Okay, so I'll just get going here. So welcome to our webinar, Alberta SCILS webinar on the impact of wheelchair sports. Today we have some great guests. We have our professional expert, Jen Sales. She's the Executive Director of Wheelchair Sports Alberta. And we have two lived experience experts, and Ross Norton, the Program Manager with Alberta Northern Lights Wheelchair Basketball Society, and Kasey, who's our patient liaison with neurosciences at Alberta Health. She's got a bunch of experience with a bunch of different wheelchair sports and kind of just how they've impacted her life. So just quickly before we get going, I want to announce our winner for our monthly draw for our gift card. This year's winner is Paula Reed. Congratulations. If you are on this call, you can please contact Caitlin. We'll put her email in the chat box and you can get a hold of her. And just a reminder, for next month, we'll reveal the winner for the tablet draw for everybody that's been helping participate in our monthly reviews. We are doing a draw for the tablet. So thank you for everybody that's been doing those. And next month we will reveal. Just a quick note for our future webinars, everybody that's been coming on regularly. We changed it a little bit. Because of security reasons with Zoom, you now have to register for our future webinars. So there will be a link. You click the link and you go in and put in your information, and you will receive the link for our webinar in your email. So it's just a little bit different, but should still work pretty fine in the future. As always, want to direct your attention to our rehab advice line. It is an Alberta-only service. It connects its callers to allied health clinicians who can help you access services anywhere you live. These services are like activities and exercises that can help your physical concerns, strategies to maintain day-to-day activities, rehab services that are open for in-person or virtual visits, and community-based organizations that can support them. The service is open every day of the week from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. A quick disclaimer, the information contained in this webinar and related materials is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please contact your medical practitioner for more information and see what is right for you. This webinar will also be recorded and will be made publicly accessible on our YouTube channel. Some housekeeping rules. Everybody will be muted while the presentation is going on. There will be a short presentation followed by a discussion where we ask everybody and invite you to share your views and opinions. So please feel free to activate your camera at that point. If you want to participate in the conversation, you can either request to speak in the chat box or wave your hand. And then please hold the space key to unmute yourself when you're called on. We will monitor the chat box for any questions, comments, or if you experience technical issues. And there will be two polls, one here at the beginning and one at the end, where we just ask some questions for you guys to please answer. And anytime, you can always change your name or keep your video off during this webinar for your privacy. So the first poll here will take 30 seconds to complete. So first off, I welcome Jen Sales. She's come on the scene with a force. She's now been with Wheelchair Sports Alberta for a little while and has been going on to all the tournaments and is always a presence and a smiling face. And I'm sure she'll be sharing some great things of how you can be involved with WSA and kind of what it looks like. Jen.
Thanks, Terry, and thanks everybody for having me and letting me share a little bit about what I know. I've been with Wheelchair Sports Alberta now for about 5 years, and I still feel like I'm learning a lot every day, so I'm going to do my best to make everybody proud. Go ahead for the first slide there, Terry, please. All right, so Wheelchair Sports Alberta provides 5 sports. We do wheelchair basketball, rugby, tennis, and then para athletics and para ice hockey, or sledge hockey as some people would know it. We're a provincial sport organization, so we run Team Alberta, which is our high performance program for these 5 sports. We also partner with some other provincial sport organizations, the able-bodied side, to also provide these sports. We offer sport development, which would look like coach, official, and athlete development. We partner with our local clubs to do recruitment activities, so offering have-a-go days or try-it events. We also do weekly programming, and we have a schools program, and we offer grants to our members and clubs, and some club support as well, which could look like policies, especially during COVID, admin tasks, and leadership. So just because we offer 5 sports does not mean that those are the only ones that are available to you. So Terry, if you go to the next slide, please. So there's lots of options, as you can see here. And just because we're not specifically offering these sports doesn't mean that if you get a hold of us, we'll put you in contact with whatever sports that you want to play. And if something that you want to do is not on this list, there's also other options as well. So happy to help wherever we can. All right, Terry. So if you are a para athlete, you don't necessarily classify to participate in each sport. So classification is a system that's developed to ensure equity on the playing field, and as well as meaningful competition. So it's classification, I mean, as a PSA, it can be super complicated. So if you want to learn more about it, or know if somebody you're working with, or if you yourself interested in para sports, if you classify or not, you can always get in touch with a coach or a local club just to get some more information, as they are way more knowledgeable about this than I am, but I'm gonna do my best. So each sport has a different classification system. Depending on the sport you play is how you would get classified. So for example, para ice hockey is minimal disability. So they've got a wide range of participants from lower mobility to high mobility, all the way up to able-bodied as well, that participate all the time. And we'll also see this in the sport of basketball. Once you want, like if you wanted to go high performance past provincial, you would have to have a disability, though you're not able to participate in the Olympics as an able-bodied, or the Paralympics as an able-bodied athlete. Wheelchair basketball and rugby are also kind of similar in ways that you get a point or a number associated with you based on your mobility level. And there's only so many points allowed on the court at one time. So coaches really do have a strategic job in setting up lineups where you're going to have lower level disability and maybe somebody with a lot lower mobility participating with each other to be able to make those lineups work. Rugby is a little bit different, as you have to have at least 3 limbs impaired. So a lot of times we call it a quad sport, as quads will be filling the rosters most in this sport. And so I mean, depending on the type of disability that you have, that actually might set you up better for certain sports. Just because, I mean, some sports really do favor certain disabilities. The second form of classification that we have is grouping athletes together for competition. We'll see that in sports like swimming or skiing and para-athletics, and that's just to ensure that people with similar mobility will be competing together. All right, thank you. So long-term athlete development is a model that's developed for a pathway in sport, and if you are participating in sport in some capacity, you are going to sit somewhere in this model. It does look a little bit different for people living with disabilities, just because we have, especially with spinal cord injury, late entry. So people get injured later in life. So they have most of the time would have participated in sport as an able-bodied individual, and now they're re-entering sport as a para-athlete. Of course, with spinal cord injury, there's going to be a period of grief and loss, and somebody might get injured when they're 18, but they might not come find sport till they're 24, 25, depending on just what their passion is and what they're interested in. There's also a little bit of ego and fear because they might have been a really strong athlete as an able-bodied individual, and then coming into sport later, can be a little bit scary because nobody wants to not be real good at things, especially in sport. So once we get that first contact, we might get first contact with these people at a club level. It could be at one of our Have a Go days. They could be seeing it in a school program. But our goal for there is just to get them some physical literacy. And the goal of physical literacy is develop chair skills and sports skills so that they have the confidence and competence to maybe progress in their sports career. Could be in the club system, or could be just more of a recreational type activity. And then maybe one day they do choose to do high performance. However, the club system in Alberta, most clubs offer all of that. So you could be a recreation athlete or a high performance athlete all in your clubs. So yeah, it's it's a different system for sure for disability sport. All right, go ahead, Terry. So if you're interested in how to get involved, the easiest way in Alberta is just to get a hold of us. In the province, we are a staff team of 2. So you've got me or Rachel to talk to so far, but we're doing the best that we can to keep up. But yeah, get a hold of us in whatever way that you want to participate. So if you want to be an athlete, you want to be a coach or a volunteer, we'll get you set up however we can. If you are in rural Alberta, it can be tough if there's not a local club there for you. So we do offer new club startups. We've got a manual, we've got support system there for you. So if you yourself want to start up a club, or you know somebody else who might be a really good champion in your area, we will do whatever we can to help them out. But if you are not interested in starting a club and you're still in rural Alberta, we have equipment rentals available to you. So you can still participate in your local area, just maybe not at a club level. You can also check us out on our website and social media, and we've got a monthly newsletter. And if you're interested in receiving that, just send me an email. We can put you on our contact list. All right, go ahead, Terry. So this is, pretty low-hanging fruit for us right now, is just the reality with COVID. And we know the current restrictions and where we're at right now. And this picture is one of our virtual Zoom wheelchair basketballs for our junior team, Alberta. Coach Daryl's there in the top in the middle, and he's going over some pushing drills and some ball handling, as well as some video, just to get our team mentally and physically prepared for hopefully a really good 2021-2022 season. And we're just hopeful to get back out there and see everybody on the court, the ice, and the track.
Oh, whoops. This should be on in 1 second. There you go. Thank you so much, Jen. So next up, we have Ross Norton. He has done basically everything you can possibly do with wheelchair basketball. And he has a great story from start to finish, and is always still an inspiration for a lot of people in the wheelchair basketball world and in other sports as well. So I'll let you lead it away, Ross.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Well, I guess I can start by explaining how I became injured. I had a spinal cord injury due to transverse myelitis when I was 15. I was living in a small rural town just outside of Red Deer, and it's well, for those who don't know, transverse myelitis is the damage to the myelin sheath around the spinal cord. It's generally hits younger people, teenage people, and it's generally incomplete injury. So I've met a few people with transverse myelitis, and the functional level is pretty much all the same. It's very similar. So I got into wheelchair basketball by meeting my physiotherapist in the hospital, and she played wheelchair basketball, and she was able-bodied, and she said, well, you should come out and play, because I was athletic before my injury. And I went out not really knowing what to expect, and I fell in love with it pretty quickly because of the people. It was generally the community that kind of embraced me as a future athlete. And when you play sport, your disability kind of goes away and you become an athlete. That's what I really liked about it. I moved up to Edmonton in 1993. I guess my injury was in '89, so 4 years after. And it was primarily to play basketball with the Northern Lights. And there were most of the national team, Team Canada, was from Edmonton. So I got to train and play with those guys. They taught me how to enjoy training, taught me how to train. And I guess I go from there. So maybe we'll go to the next slide, Terry. So I went to Canada Games in '95 and learned to train with Team Alberta, and we won a gold medal in Jasper. That was pretty exciting for a young person. And then I went to the Paralympic Games in 2000 in Sydney, and that was probably my funnest tournament, just because it's our first gold medal for Canada. We had a fantastic team, and we dominated the tournament. We dominated the world in that tournament, winning 8-0 by a margin of 20 or 30 points per game. So we were doing things that other countries weren't doing. We were being innovative with the sport. We were just practicing all sorts of different styles and systems and things like that. So we had a great coaching staff. We had, back then, we had lots of money too. So we were able to do lots of training camps and things like that. I was also fortunate enough to be part of the team with Alberta Northern Lights that won back-to-back NWBA championship, and that's the league down in the States. And that was for the first time, I think, a Canadian team has won back-to-back in the Division 2. And then went to repeat the Paralympic gold medal in 2004 in Athens. And it's been done before. We lost in our third Paralympic in Beijing, and we were hoping to three-peat, but we weren't able to do that. So the only team that's repeated is US. So that's, I think, the current situation. I think the US could actually potentially three-peat here in Tokyo, but we'll see. So as an athlete, I've been really lucky to have great coaching, the opportunities to train, and the time to train. I played with Nashville Lightning and Denver Nuggets for a few years, and that helped me hone my skills. And fortunate to have Canada Games gold as an athlete and a coach, Paralympic and Canadian championship and championships in the US. So, I've really been fortunate in the sport. If you want to go to the next slide, Terry, please. So in my retirement, I retired in 2008 after Beijing, and it's always been my desire to try all sorts of different sports and activities. And I've been involved in, I guess one picture I don't have is downhill skiing. It was one of my passions since I was young, and I was a skier before my injury. But there's so many great para sports and recreation activities. I love them all, and if I could do more, I would do more. I love tennis. I went to Canada Games for tennis, and hand cycling is recreation. I think it's a great cross-training sport. So I encourage, anytime there's a new athlete come out, I'm like, try everything just to see what you like, what your passion's going to be. And the thing with parasport too is some things are easier than others. When you're a lower class or you have less function, you're a spinal cord injury. Sometimes maybe sledge hockey's not all that easy to play. So find a sport that you really enjoy and you're good at. And so that's my philosophy. We can go to the next slide, Terry. So I was also asked to talk talk about my coaching experience. So when I retired in 08, I thought, you know, I know a lot as an athlete, and it's my responsibility to give back to the next generation. And so I started coaching the Northern Lights, trying to pass on my knowledge. The transfer was a learning experience. Just because you know how to play doesn't mean you can teach it. So I'm still learning how to coach. I was fortunate enough to coach the U25 women Team Canada for 4 or 5 years. We went to World Championships in Beijing. We lost in the bronze game, so we took 4th. That was certainly a big learning experience for me. I really enjoyed my experience with them. It's just a great, wonderful group of girls to coach. And I know they certainly keep you in line. For sure, you slip up and they're going to let you know. But I also was part of the coaching staff for the 2019 Canada Games. And, you know, Canada Games is just, it's almost equal to the Olympic Games. Like we have such a great thing here in Canada where, you know, athletes can participate in a games that's equal in quality and level of play to the Olympic Games, and it prepares those athletes for, you know, their next goal of making their national team. So you know, playing in 95 as an athlete and winning as a coach on home soil again was pretty amazing for me. So you know, I've been fortunate to be an athlete and a coach in basketball. So it's given me a lot, and I'm trying to give back as much as I can. Next slide, Terry. So, you know, just some things I learned from sport that I think are really important. Just some points. You know, I think it's important that you believe in yourself and that you can actually achieve great things in sport. You know, confidence and self-esteem are big things for athletes that, you know, you actually have to train yourself to believe that you can do great things. Setting goals is one of the foundations of being able to achieve great things in life and in sport. And so I think there needs to be a pathway for that. I think having mentors is undervalued. I don't think we set it up professionally enough or formally. And I've had lots of great mentors, and you know, you have to learn from other people, and what you have to gain values. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to just come up with them yourself. Humility, I think, is a really important thing in sport and in life. And I've tried to be, you know, a very grounded athlete and person in my life. To be thankful for everything you have. And, you know, there's lots of people helping out with your success. And I think it's important to be thankful and giving back, you know, not just as a coach, but maybe as a volunteer, supporting athletes, supporting sports. And it takes a huge amount of people and resources to make athletes successful. So I think that's really important. So I'll leave it, you know, for questions for the small group. So thanks, Terry.
Thanks so much, Ross. Always love hearing your story and laughing about how I thought I would be able to make it and realize you need talent. So pretty impressive, Ross. Next up, we got Kasey. And like I said, I like the term she puts here, adaptive athlete, because that's pretty much what she is. She's tried a little bit of everything and definitely brought the attitude and the right attitude that can lead you towards success. And I think you'll really enjoy her story. I'll let you go, Kasey.
Cool. Thank you, Terry. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the beginning of my journey, I guess, acquiring a spinal cord injury. When I was 20, I was out with my friends snowboarding, kind of a freak accident, you know, did 3 back handsprings with my head and my board, and acquired a C6 incomplete injury in my cervical spine. So I am a quadriplegic, but I have an incomplete injury. Terry, I'll get you to go to the next slide, please. It's really funny. I was really very active before my injury, and I was having a conversation with my son the other day, telling him, you know, all the different sports I had tried before I ended up in a wheelchair. And it was kind of cool just being able to count on both of my hands how many things I'd tried, and then telling him post-injury how many things that how many activities or sports I've tried. So there's a ton out there. And I guess the first one that I got into after I was injured snowboarding. And so the first one I got back into or tried post-injury was skiing. And I think my mom was more scared than I was. I was honestly more worried about having a bowel accident or like peeing while I was out in the sit ski on the top of a mountain. Never did happen. Very thankful for that. But yeah, that really truly opened my eyes up and made me realize that there are so many things out there that I can still do. After suffering a spinal cord injury, at some point it just seemed like, oh crap, so many doors are closed for me. But sport kind of really helped me realize that there are so many doors that are still open or will open for me. After trying skiing, I figured, this is great. I got my winter sport covered, but I was really kind of lacking in the rest of the year kind of things to do. And I found myself just kind of going to the gym and swimming with my boyfriend at the time. And oddly enough, we ran into this lady, a really wonderful Paralympic athlete named Kendra Alhama. She was working out at the Repsol Center, or previously known as Talisman. And she said to me, hey, why don't you come try wheelchair basketball? And I honestly laughed. I was just like, yeah, I'm a quad. Like, I'm not really interested, and I didn't really like basketball before. Why would I try basketball now? And she's like, that's fair. That's totally fair. But why don't you come give it a try? And then you can make a better judgment after that. And very similar to Ross, I surprised myself. I absolutely loved it. And it was the people that really made it, and the fact that you're in this different wheelchair that is so smooth, so fast, and the focus is no longer on your disability. It's really, what are you able to still do, So it was very eye-opening. And I'll always thank Kendra for, just putting the ask out there. Sorry, my cat is kind of going nuts, so you may hear her in the background. So honestly, though, when I tried wheelchair basketball, I really had no idea how many opportunities that would open up to me. And just a few of those to name are, I was actually invited to try out for the national team for wheelchair basketball twice, and was absolutely honored. I never made the team, obviously, but just being invited to try out and be surrounded by some incredible women with so much talent and drive and passion. It was incredible. Also, just so much travel. Like I had never traveled this much before my injury, and I just was constantly traveling so much. So the actual physical act of getting on a plane, by myself was no longer intimidating after flying with a team to go places. But I also just couldn't stress enough how joining wheelchair basketball gave me the opportunity to hang out with like some seriously incredible people, totally hilarious people. And Ross is one of those for sure. He really liked ribbing me on the court, probably because I was the slowest out there, but I was the only quad. Thanks, Lorna. Lorna was my coach when I played wheelchair basketball, and they were very encouraging. And I got a lot of game time because I was a lower classification, and like Jen had spoke to earlier, you have to be strategic when you're putting players out on the court so that you can run interesting lineups. And I was able to kind of add to that. I wasn't out dunking or scoring baskets, but I was contributing in the best way that I could with my classification. Ultimately, though, I think a lot of what happened to me when I first started playing wheelchair basketball and towards the end of my career, so I say, is that I had a huge shift in my mindset, and it was no longer my focus on my limits, but it was really just focusing on my abilities. I have tons of memories both on and off the court, and looking back, playing wheelchair basketball really opened up my eyes, and I learned how to drive again post-injury with hand controls. I remember having my boyfriend drive me to and from practice. help me take my wheelchair, my basketball chair, and sometimes even push me to practice too. By the end of it, I was driving my own vehicle, loading my own chair, and pushing my chair and my basketball chair to and from practice, doing a practice and then going home. So, you know, a noticeably huge jump in my physical and mental abilities, even at 7.5 or 8 years post-injury. And that was really neat for me, actually. You know, you think after an injury, you try and get as strong as you can and you kind of maybe plateau, but sport really helped me elevate or take it to the next level. I ended up leaving wheelchair basketball and I tried a number of things. First, I think I tried like wheelchair racing, and weren't very many quads involved in that. And I had a lot of fun, did a bit of traveling, got some ribbons and medals, and then I switched over and tried some hand cycling. I truly, truly loved hand cycling. It was just road cycling, but I got a little bit more serious in that. And, you know, looking back, choosing a sport where you get to squeeze yourself into a spandex suit and go to beautiful township roads, I thought you know, squeezing into that spandex suit, I always felt like a kind of a hefty little wrestler. And I just really had to laugh at myself. You know, the sport itself was really fun, and it took me to glamorous township roads for sure. I got to a certain level of competing in hand cycling, and I guess up until that point, it was always my goal of reaching a higher level of competing in sport. But I think at around 34 or age 35, I realized I wanted to settle down and have a family. So I had a baby, and I think it was not even a year after having a baby, I realized like I need sport in my life again. And that's when I reached out to the guys and girls for our local club of wheelchair rugby. And holy, just smashing into other people in wheelchairs is the best stress relief. Like it just is. It's great exercise. It's super fun. So many opportunities to travel again. And, you know, for me, it's just, I've had the beautiful opportunity to be able to try so many different sports, but, and take it to certain levels. But I think now that I'm in it for fun, it's just so much more meaningful. And I think that's why it hurts so much with COVID. You know, I made it to the provincial level with rugby, and we've got a great group of people. In this picture here, we're actually in Reno at a low pointer tournament. And I guess in the quad world, I'm considered a higher functioning quad. But it was very humbling to get my ass kicked by quads with higher levels of injury, and far, I can't even say far less ability. Like they literally kicked my butt, and I was so humbled. And it just gives me room to think like how much better I could be out there, given I put in that time and the effort into training. Getting back to COVID, it's been really rough on my mental health, being out of rugby, you know, and having that social aspect. But I've actually rediscovered my love for mountain biking. And I say this 20 years post-injury. So it still kind of blows my mind that I've been in a wheelchair for now 21 years. But I could never really grasp or get my head around how I would ride a downhill mountain bike with quad hands, you know, not being able to work the brakes. So lo and behold, a gentleman in Calgary here named Christian, he created this incredible bike. It's called the Bowhead, and I got one a few years ago now. So I'm not giving it out there like I'm 20 anymore. I'm a mom, you know, I'm in my 40s, but it's honestly just great to be back out there in nature and to be able to ride with my family. My son, he's 6, and seeing him mountain bike, you know, being able to, whether it's be the first person in the lineup of our ride or the last person, really participate and join in on the adventure and not be told about the adventure when they get home. So, oh, that hits me in the heart, makes me want to cry, but I feel incredibly grateful to have this piece of machinery here. I'd just like to close by saying overall, wheelchair sports have given me so much more than I could have ever imagined. There's like a huge list of benefits, but I'm just gonna throw a few out there to wrap it up. One of those probably that, these are my top three, I would think. So confidence, and not only confidence in myself, but confidence in my ability to travel, to have a family, because I was able to see other people in wheelchair sports having families. So that was cool. And just confidence in having a normal life, regardless if I'm in a wheelchair or not. What's my meter at, Terry? I'm saying a lot here. Next would be, my physical health. So when you're out on the court or when you're involved in an adaptive activity or wheelchair sport, you move your body in so many ways. You just don't even know the strength that you'll gain in your body in different parts until you notice, holy crap, my transfers are stronger, or just your abilities are elevated and without even realizing it. It also helped me in learning to fuel myself properly. If you're out there playing sports, I had to fuel myself so that I could compete optimally out there. And so just kind of trying to, it really helped me keep some things in line. But ultimately, overall, it's best for my mental health. It just helps me grow as a person, connect with people socially. It's just, I would say, the biggest reason to join adaptive sport or any type of wheelchair sport would be to improve your mental health. At least it was for me. And I'm so glad I joined it. I will never not be involved. I'm doing my time right now as an athlete, but hopefully in the future, I will pursue some coaching once I've gained enough knowledge. That's it in a nutshell. I appreciate everyone listening to my story. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you so much, Kasey. And a lot of your story really hits home. I remember I was a phys ed teacher before I broke my neck. I went to university to become a phys ed teacher, and I played, small town guy. I played 30 different sports, very active in the rec community and hockey and different things. And becoming a quad, I just decided, I can't, I was thinking wheelchair basketball, sledge hockey and all these things, and then realizing quadriplegics, it's really hard, or you can't do a lot of that stuff. And I gave up on that side of myself, that my physical side, that was a big part of me before I broke my neck. And it wasn't until 3 or 4 years later where somebody just made me come out to a rugby practice, because I decided I didn't like rugby. I didn't think I would. And all of a sudden those competitive juices and that physical side of me just exploded, and I was me again. And it takes people 3 years, sometimes it takes people 10 years, but it's amazing how watching people, like you said, higher level injuries and stuff, wheel around you and wheel circles around you, do their own transfers and do all these things, can really motivate you as a person in a wheelchair. So moving on, we're just going to do some quick roundtable questions before we move on to our discussion period. So question one I had, what were some of the biggest changes, if any, you found in your everyday wheelchair life after getting involved in sport? This was for Kasey and Ross. Kasey, I'll let you go first. Sorry.
Sorry, Terry. So some of the biggest changes that I experienced were just overall improvement in my quality of life, and that confidence. I just became a more confident human being because I was developing skills and not focused on me being in a wheelchair. It sounds weird. Wheelchair sports helps me not feel like I'm in a wheelchair, but it gave me the opportunity to get out of my chair into some different types of equipment. And to be honest, I think a lot of us felt this way, but after I was injured, I didn't want to hang out with other people in wheelchairs. I do not know why, but I learned so much from them, and I'm so grateful to have played on team sports and learned so much from others in wheelchairs.
Me?
Yep.
Well, same thing for, sorry, my dog's barking. It's same thing that Kasey said. My wheelchair life before sport was about 2 weeks long, but you know, learning from other people that have injury, and you know, the more people you can learn that have similar injury, the better. And that's where you meet those people, and you spend time on the road, and you know, you just kind of like, talking about bowel and bladder is kind of embarrassing, but you know, if you can get around a bunch of people who joke and say, you know what, it's just, accidents are part of life, and you have a laugh, and you move on. And you know, the other thing I learned a lot about was skin health, you know, staying healthy and making sure you have good cushions. And the biggest thing I learned early on was to have 2 cushions. Like, you know, when you have ADL funding, it's super great. But you have to have 2 cushions. You have to have somewhere else to transfer onto a soft surface. So, you know, those are things I learned. And, you know, if you live SCI by yourself, it's pretty hard. You don't learn those things. So just everyday tricks and tips and things like that. That's what I've learned through sport.
Perfect. Question 2, did you find it hard to get involved in the beginning? And what were some of the biggest barriers you had to overcome? I'll start with you, Kasey.
Yeah, so, you know, my involvement in wheelchair sports really started, I think, back in 2006. So unlike now, where we have Instagram and all the social media outlets that are really kind of giving us information, you know, getting that information was a little bit harder. But I think the biggest thing for me was my fear, right, of going out of my comfort zone. But once I did, it was the best thing that is it. Probably one of the best things that has ever happened to me, for sure.
All right, unmute myself there. No, it wasn't hard for me to get in sport. You know, I had lots of people who, once they got your phone number, they keep calling you until you come out to the court. And I don't know if we're that aggressive now, but you know, back in the 90s, you know, you almost had to go out and play. And because, you know what, when you're in sports in Canada, sometimes certain teams have they don't have big numbers of people. So you're kind of valuable as a lower functioning spinal cord injury in some sports. So, you know, the biggest barrier I had was transportation. I was 16 years old. I needed to get my license and a car, and I lived half an hour from practice. So once I had my car and my license, my dad built me some hand controls in his garage, and I was motivated to get out. So I think still transportation is a barrier for people now. It seems like younger people aren't getting driver's licenses. As you know, when I was 15 or 16, I wanted a car. I wanted to have my license, but nowadays there isn't the motivation to go get your license right away. Maybe it's the graduated system. I'm not sure, but that can be a barrier for people.
Yeah, I think, Coach, it might still be the same, Russ. I think I've definitely seen Bruce, when he sees a new injured person in a wheelchair, drool a little bit if he sees their hand function going pretty good or something like that. Question 3, are injuries common? And how do you and your team work to prevent injuries, both in the game and in your training? This one probably, Kasey, just for your kind of what you do to stay safe, and Ross a little bit more from a coaching perspective. Kasey, I'll let you go first.
So very similar to what Ross said too, as far as like seating, I have a sheepskin that I'll throw down to protect my butt in my chair and even with traveling. And then big focus on nutrition, just to have like a healthy bowel routine, especially when I am traveling. That's the last thing I want on my mind, giving me some trouble. So proper, I start with all the basics and all the time, just like proper hydration, proper nutrition, because, when we go on road trips, we do party a little as well. Oh my gosh, my gut just jumped on my head.
We'll switch to Ross.
Injury prevention for me as a coach, we do stretching before practice, after practice. Strength training is a big part of injury prevention. Rotator cuff is a very common injury in wheelchair basketball. So, we spend a lot of time learning and teaching athletes how to look after their shoulders. As an injury, you're spending all your time in your chair. So you're going to play sports hard, and then you have to go home and get in the bathtub after practice. So rest is a really important part of not acquiring injury. Like Kasey said, nutrition, protein, hydration is all part of is injury prevention. In terms of skin health for new injuries is a big thing. So cushions and bowel bladder maintenance is big. So that's part of the learning process. But for older injuries, it's shoulder health. That's number one.
Thank you. These last two are a little more for Jen. So question 4, how can I be involved if I do not have an SCI or spinal cord injury?
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier with our sports system in Canada that pretty much all the sports that we do provide, you can be able-bodied to participate in some capacity. But if you're not interested in sport, there's some other options for coaching, officiating. We always need table officials, like maintenance staff. If you're a welder, we could find some work for you. However, essentially you want to be involved, we can get you involved. And we have a big community and lots of holes to fill. So ready when you are. Yeah,
well, and any player for any wheelchair sport can attest to the lifeblood of wheelchair sports is our volunteers, and that's a lot of in spinal cord injury in general. There's lots of chairs, lots of equipment, and you're traveling across country and you're going to practices twice a week in a gym and you're setting up gyms. We can do that, but it would take a lot longer.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on the sport too, right? Because basketball, fairly independent sport, they do a lot of things on their own, but you get to rugby and these darn rugby players, they just need so much help.
Well, popping tires like every 5 seconds. Somebody's got to change those tires. Question 5, last question before we move on. Does it cost a lot, wheelchair sport?
Wheelchair sport in itself is extremely expensive. You just slap a medical label on any piece of equipment and it's just 10 times more expensive than it needs to be. But we do a lot as a community to keep those financial barriers down. So if you are interested in playing and you can't afford $5,000 for a wheelchair basketball chair, you go and get involved in the club system because they have equipment for you. And you might not have the perfect fitted chair, but if you stick with it long enough, generally you'll get something that fits you better. WSA also offers financial grants if you need some financial aid, or if you're a high performance athlete and you want to maybe get out and get another chair or something that fits you better, there's also grants for that. But yeah, I mean, if you were to compare wheelchair sports to the able-bodied system, I actually think we do a good job in the province of keeping it much less for the participants and the individuals than our able-bodied system.
Thank you so much. So quickly, we'll just do one last poll before we move on to the discussion period. It's showing up on your screen. I don't know.
Not yet, Terry.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
There we go.
So just quickly, I want to draw your attention quickly to our social media platform, Spinal Cord Injury Alberta. With these webinars, we always post them on all of our social media platforms, as well as any other events or peer events that we're doing or different things that are going on in the community. And also next week, next Monday from 12 to 1, we always throw a post-webinar peer chat on and we'll be posting these on our social media as well for us to continue the conversation. If you guys feel like you wanted to add a little more or didn't, talk enough, or just want to come and make fun of us, that's fine. Come and jump on next week from 12 to 1, and we can continue the conversation on wheelchair sport. So we're going to try something a little different this month. I know the numbers aren't as big as sometimes, so we might only do it for a little while. But what we're going to try is we're doing some separate breakout rooms. So we have 4 different breakout rooms. You can actually choose which breakout room you want to go to. So there's a wheelchair basketball room that Ross will be in, as well as a para ice hockey that we have. And I think Coach Chris, I believe, is here, as well as a wheelchair rugby room and a general with Jen, which is basically everything wheelchair sports Alberta and tennis and any other sports that you can jump into. So each room is going to have a coach, like I said. So in wheelchair rugby, Bruce is with us as well, and he'll be in that room. And as well as hopefully some peer athletes or anybody interested in those rooms. So like I said, you can choose which room, and you can switch at any time. So there's a room button, I believe, that will be on the bottom of your screen. So you can click on it and switch to another room if you want to ask. And at any time, you can also leave these rooms and come back to the main room, which would be here, which I'll be at, by clicking leave room at the bottom right. Don't click leave meeting, click leave room. After I said 20 to 30 minutes, but we'll see, depending on numbers, how things are going, you'll be directed back here to the main room. So when you're in these rooms, feel free to ask the coaches any questions about their programs or things they're going on, or anything that you want to ask. And, hopefully if they don't know the answer, that's fine. We can always discuss things, as well as the peers if they are curious about anything. And I would really encourage any participants to also share their stories. A lot of us on this call have also been involved in wheelchair sport, or have seen it, or have been associated with it and have something to share. So I really think that just sharing and letting people know for future webinars and future athletes kind of what the journey is like, I think that would be great. So we will be breaking into these breakout rooms right away here. Oops. Actually, I might make the executive decision. It was worth a shot, and I thought it was going to be a lot of fun, but we unfortunately don't have a lot of numbers, so we might. Oh wait, is that why it's going down? I see now. Don't listen to what Terry's saying. Also, if you have any questions or any issues, please, you can unmute and ask. And in this room, you can also ask questions in this room. Brenda, you were having some issues?
Terry, I'm having some issues. I don't see where I can join a breakout room.
Do you want to?
Yeah, do you want me to just choose a room for you? Is there a room you want me to put you in?
I was thinking I would have something to say with Jen.
Okay.
And Brenda would also like to go to Jen's room.
I don't see any links either.
Lorna, okay. Which room would you like to go into, Lorna?
Basketball.
Basketball?
Yes, please.
Maybe people that have phones and iPads have it's not popping up possibly.
It could also be the addition of the updates, the Zoom updates, if you haven't updated Zoom in a while.
Okay. Yep.
But last call, unless you want me to start putting folks in random rooms.
I see somebody, I believe you're at the hospital. Would you be interested in another room? You're muted. Okay. I'm pretty sure if they're blacked out and muted, they might be on the call, but not quite on the call.
What if I just wanted to chat with you, Terry? Jeez.
Not possible. I saw the numbers dwindling and I thought, kind of breakout room situation. I was popping around. I thought it'd be kind of funny that my head just kept popping in and out of rooms. Felt like Jimmy Fallon on his thing he does. But what I really liked is that each room had their very focused goal. Rugby was really talking some really cool things in general. I saw that Brenda was getting some help. And so maybe just quickly, if anybody wants to share a couple of things just from I know basketball and the para ice hockey didn't have as much participation, but for obvious reasons, but from the rugby room maybe, and from the general room, anybody want to share something to the whole group? Yeah, Kasey?
I just can't wait until we can gather and play together again, because I miss my sport. I miss my sports. I miss my rugby people so much. And this was really great, actually, not seeing Bruce, but, hearing you, Coach. And
Sorry.
learning about Beto, your sports history. I'm always amazed at how well Zoom is at connecting with people. Even though it's technology, it has the power to really connect. So thanks for this webinar.
Well, I got to just say, guys, my role here is peer coordinator. They kind of under my job, it is to put together events for people in wheelchairs to get together, to learn skills and, ask each other questions and help become better wheelchair users. Well, that's what sport is, coming together as a team with a bunch of like-minded peers that are in similar situations, whether you're injured or not. It's, not everybody has to do sport. I'm not saying you have to be an athlete and you got to play sport. But even if you just come out and you're now surrounded by a bunch of people in wheelchairs that have similar injuries as yourself, that have done lots of traveling and done lots of cool things because they had to play sport, and you learn and you become better as a wheelchair user. And I really wanted to get that cemented home in this webinar, is that sport's not about being an athlete always. It's also about becoming a better, well-rounded person. And as a wheelchair user, that means a better wheelchair user. And you learn by seeing other people do. And a lot of you guys here know that because of what you've seen. Sport changed my life. When I came out to play rugby, I didn't realize that I was in a holding pattern for 3 years doing absolutely nothing. And all of a sudden I started playing rugby and everything changed. As far as, bowel routines, bladder, travel, and all of a sudden, boom, I met my wife a year later, because that confidence returned and my strength returned that I had lost, and I didn't realize I'd even lost it until I started hanging out with a lot of people. So just wanted to let that be known.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's all Bruce. He salivated for about 5 seconds when he saw me, and then he saw me a year later, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, you're kind of what you are."
I wouldn't go that far, Terry.
Well, Bruce, it's a great story. I coming out for rugby, Bruce. If you don't know him, he's the coach of the Edmonton rugby team, and he, as soon as you got there, he was #1 in making me feel so welcomed.
And the province.
And the province, whatever. If you can make it that high. But the key was that he was my first face. I got there and he's like, "Awesome, let's get you in a chair." Like still, like as soon as you got you there, oh man, we gotta get somebody get out of a chair. Let's get this guy in a chair. You know, like day one, like step one, and you're so excited to meet me, and you're so excited to get me on the team and on the court and get started. And that excitement was infectious. And you're not even a wheelchair user. Like that's the beauty of it. Like you're there and you're so invested in this sport for wheelchair users that it inspires wheelchair users. Like that's huge. I think that connection and the community, not just for spinal cord injuries, but for the whole community of everybody that does it, that's where we start, and that's how we can get to where we are.
Bruce has a rugby chair, by the way.
Yeah, but he sucks in it.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to play anymore.
That's because you're like 10 feet tall when you're sitting, so it's unfair.
Terry, just go into your point about just talking about the themes in the room. I just point out probably one of the biggest themes that you could pick out in all the rooms was the psychological aspect of that provides individuals in this that participate in sport, of whether that's a new injury, old injury, or whatever, that it provides that community to be able to discuss issues that are going on in one's life that could be similar, that could be anything, right? Even a relationship between the gimpy guy and the walkie, right? Like one of those things, right? Like, or vice versa. But to be able to have a community to go to of the individuals that have been there, done that, multitude of years of experience is huge.
And we've always experienced this, Rob, as it's all about numbers sometimes, and unfortunately you got to move to, if you want to be really in on a sport, sometimes you got to go to the numbers. You know, there's not a lot of wheelchair users everywhere. And like I went into Chris's group to talk a little bit about para ice hockey, and it's a reality of some sports, especially with sledge hockey, but para ice hockey, like if you want to play at a high level, spinal cord injury isn't really going to get you there. You know, it's an amputee sport more, but people think, you know, they got to go somewhere, but it could still be something, but it's about the numbers. You know, if you had a group of 10 spinal cord injury users wanting to play para ice hockey together, that'd be cool. But you know, but you have to find that, you know, it's, and sometimes it's just not available. And as Chris says, like you got to have the mentors, and when we said with Ross, like you need the mentors. There's not high level spinal cord hockey mentors out there to get people into the sport, you know. So
I think
the one
go ahead.
Go, Chris.
Oh no, I was gonna say, I mean, the one thing is like I didn't want to put it, I guess, in that exact, like that. Yeah, my verbiage, I think, was a little bit wrong there. I mean, like there are people that are playing on the national hockey team, on our national para team, that have spinal cord injuries, right? Like there is no limitation, right? It's not like, I guess what I was meaning with that is the US has taken that approach because they have the ability to take that approach. You know, here in Canada, Tyrone Henry is a spinal cord injury. He's been playing on the national team for quite a few years, right? You know, Kevin Rempel played on the team for quite a few years. I'm working with Ryan Straczynski, who's already made our provincial team, and we've got quite a few guys on the provincial team that are spinal cord injuries. And it's not, you know, it's something that honestly, if there's a will, there's a way for it. I mean, if you're willing to put in the time, and that's something we talked about, Terry, is, I mean, you know, in sledge hockey, when you watch the highlights and you see these guys, I mean, you're learning to become ambidextrous. You're using both hands. There's a lot of different, you know, subtle nuances that we're trying to pick up, but, you know, it's putting in the time and putting the effort. But more importantly, to speak on what a few of the other people have said, it's about that community and about that peer support, right? And coming, you know, having an acquired injury myself and getting to know people in that sport world, you know, regardless of what their disability was, you know, you can learn something from everybody. You know, everybody's got their own story, and everybody's dealt with, you know, their own sort of trials, and to have that peer support group around you. And I mean, I've seen it, you know, really with guys like Ryan, with Straz, and a lot of the other guys that I coach around here, like Zach Lavin, getting them involved in that and just watching them grow as human beings has been more rewarding than watching them actually excel and make it to high levels, because they've become better human beings through the process.
So we're going to get jumped off here, guys, because we only have till 1:30. But thank you again for everybody that come on. So just a reminder, I would really invite all of you guys to jump on again next Monday at 12 to 1. I would love to continue the conversation. I think it's just great to talk to you guys. We're all really inspiring people. And unless you're Kasey and I, and we had kids, so we have an excuse not to play sport or get that high of a level because we're tired all the time. But you guys are all awesome. And we will hopefully see you next week. And hopefully I see you out in different sporting events when things open up again. I can't wait. It's going to be great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye now.